Welcome back to part 2 of my 2023 year in review. This is your reluctant gringo, and today we're going to finish off 2023 and hopefully leave it behind for better pastures. 2023 was not just about the collapse of Disney or the mess at Warner Brothers. It was not all about Barbie or Oppenheimer or other unexpected hits like Mario Brothers. 2023 was also the year of the franchises. Sequels, prequels, reboots, and reimaginings littered the box office landscape. 2023 was a year that brought us multiple 3-hour-plus movies based on historical events, helmed by great directors and starring A-list actors. All but one flopped financially, and once again signaled the death of the movie star. It was the year that the writers and actors went on strike, and nobody cared. It was a year when an independent film was vilified and was actively sabotaged so people could not see it because it aimed to protect children from exploitation, showing us exactly what Hollywood is really into. But what 2023 will be remembered for most is this: Hollywood has lost its dominance. All of the things I just laid out for you are pieces of evidence in the long-running trial of a creatively bankrupt and morally twisted piece of Americana known as Tinseltown. What was once a place of magic and mystery, a place that was admired by the general public and looked upon as quasi-American royalty, has become a place for derision and cynicism and hate. Sure, Hollywood insiders and power brokers will try to lie to you and tell you it's because of the pandemic, it's because of the rise in streaming platforms, it's because of the rise of social media options for entertainment, it's because of the rise of toxic fandoms and toxic content on YouTube, it's because of inflation, it's because of political division, it's because most of us in the general audience are violent, racist, homophobic, misogynistic, transphobic assholes who are not allowing the culture to move forward with their progressive message and their progressive values. But we have become immune to these attacks by now, because we understand that when they say culture, we know that they really mean cult. But let's not overlook some of the risks filmmakers took to give us something different. Films that were quirky and a little out of left field, and had the audience in mind when crafting them. Films like Five Nights at Freddy's, Dungeons and Dragons, Gran Turismo, and No Hard Feelings. 3 of these had established IPs with established fan bases, and these films did all that they could do to remember that, and to remember that if not for their respective fan bases, they would not have a chance to make a movie in the first place. The biggest of these films being Five Nights at Freddy's. While not a cinematic masterpiece, it was fun. It was well made. It did not try to cram social commentary into the narrative. It knew what it was. It knew who it was for. It made a pile of cash, all while being released in theaters and on streaming the same day. The reason why this movie is so important is because it completely trashes the excuses from Hollywood about streaming being the death of box office receipts. It proves that if you make something that a fan base wants, we show up. And why do I include a movie like No Hard Feelings on this list? Because it was a throwback to the raunchy, unapologetic comedies of the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. Sure, it didn't make a lot of money, but it just may have been the movie that says it's okay to laugh again at things that are not politically correct. I may not be the biggest Jennifer Lawrence fan in the world, but I have to tip my hat to her for having the guts to go from Oscar darling to female otter. If only the rest of Hollywood would take those kinds of chances, we may find going to the movies enjoyable again. And with that, let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the rest of the year that was 2023 in film. Creative bankruptcy. Godzilla -1, Insidious: The Red Door, Expendables 4, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, Magic Mike's Last Dance, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers: Rise of the Beast, The Exorcist Believer, Scream 6, The Equalizer 3, The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, The Nun 2, Creed 3, The Meg 2, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, Part 1, Fast 10, Saw 10, Guardians 3, John Wick Chapter 4, Aquaman 2, Wonka, Dune, The Little Mermaid. Sure, some of these films are good films. Some of them are making good money. But the point here is that if you look at the list of films released in 2023, especially the top 50 grossing films at least, 50% of them or more were sequels, prequels, reboots, or reimaginings. And I'm not even counting the re-releases of films enjoying anniversaries like The Dark Knight or Titanic or Toy Story. Some of these IPs are just tired and used up, and some of them are only reimagined to include race swapping. Some of these films are just quick cash grab attempts. Some of these films are just actors who do not have anything left in the tank. Some of these films reflect major studios unwilling to take a chance on something new, or just don't have the creativity left to come up with a unique idea. And to those who may argue this point, the top 3 grossing movies of 2023 were original offerings. Barbie, Oppenheimer, and yes, Super Mario Brothers. I don't count that as a reboot of the original 1993 dumpster fire. This one was animated and it was faithful to the source material. Very few sequels get the attention of the original films, and that's why franchises such as the original Star Wars, the original Lord of the Rings, the first three Indiana Jones, the original Exorcist are such landmark pieces of pop culture. They were lightning in a bottle and had incredible artists behind them. Now, these sequels, these reboots, these reimaginings, whatever they want to call them, they do not. They're sanitized. They are political instead of entertaining. They are mindless. Or audiences are just tired of seeing the same old thing when paying such an extravagant amount of money to buy a ticket, a popcorn, and a drink, only to walk out of the theater and exclaim with an unsatisfied, it was an okay movie. We're paying too much money for okay movies. And this is the first telltale sign that Hollywood is a shell of its former self. The death of the movie star. Looking back at the year 2023, was there an actor or a director out there that could get you to the theaters based on name recognition alone? In the 80s, Harrison Ford or Eddie Murphy or Steven Spielberg could do it. In the 90s, Jim Carrey or Brad Pitt or Quentin Tarantino could do it. In the early 2000s, Leonardo DiCaprio could, or Christopher Nolan could, and Nolan may be the only survivor here. We can blame social media for allowing movie stars to expose themselves so publicly. Their politics, their social message, their lack of intelligence, their elitism. Instead of doing the good that movie stars thought it would do, using their platforms for social change, all it did was divide fans, or drive them away, or make us think that entertainment is not entertainment at all anymore. It's just re-education. And yes, Oppenheimer was a Christopher Nolan film, and knowing that is what drove so much of the hype of that movie into financial success. However, there is not another film out there that can claim that attribute. DiCaprio, De Niro, Scorsese, these names didn't get you out to watch The Killers of the Flower Moon. Phoenix and Ridley Scott, that wasn't enough to get you to watch Napoleon. Harrison Ford reprising his role as Indiana Jones did not make that film a success. Even the much anticipated return of Michael Keaton as Batman couldn't save The Flash. Ezra Miller's unhinged social media posts and his internet fame made that impossible. There are no more bankable Hollywood stars anymore, and there may never will be again as long as actors and directors keep feeding their egos by telling us why they are better than us in every single way. One particular event emphasized this point in utmost clarity. The strike. The writer and actor guilds went on a prolonged work stoppage, and we didn't care. Some of us actually celebrated this because we knew there would be a pause in the flow of crappy films filled with pandering and progressive messaging. In short, no one cared. In the past, when these things occurred, it was a major event and an economic crisis to be solved. Today, we have the same attitude as Elon Musk.
Go yourself. But go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
The sound of freedom. Finally, one cannot talk about 2023 without talking about the one movie that made the most noise politically and ruffled the feathers of the morally corrupt Hollywood establishment. The Sound of Freedom is a film about one man's fight against the cartels in South America who kidnap children for every manner of exploitation you can imagine. It's a film about fighting against the most evil form of human bondage imaginable. One would think that this film would be lauded, heralded by Hollywood, a place where you get reminded about America's past history with slavery almost every other month. Hollywood is a place where they tell you all about your transgressions against minorities and women and how we need to do everything possible to correct these past sins. Hollywood was ground zero for the Me Too movement. But no, we forgot. These are Epstein's people. These Hollywood elite are most likely some of the consumers of this current human trafficking. When Epstein was arrested, some in Hollywood were scared senseless. When he was eliminated, they all breathed a sigh of relief. And we forgot that Hollywood is the center of propaganda to allow for the exploitation of children through gender manipulation, where using pharmaceuticals and irreversible surgeries are encouraged in all children of all ages. And we should not forget the coordinated efforts to sabotage The Sound of Freedom. Theaters were malfunctioning, the film was damaged and unwatchable when the lights went down and the trailers were finished, fire alarms were pulled, air conditioning turned off, there was a coordinated attack of the media against it, including shill YouTubers like Grace Randolph, decrying it as right-wing propaganda, even though the film is not political. And anyone who thinks human trafficking is a political issue is overall a terrible person and shouldn't be listened to in the first place. But still, this movie dominated the box office, pulling in over $250 million, proving that normal people want a good story with good morals, good values, and that's what they'll go out and see. And remember this, Disney had the rights to this film after buying Fox and gave them away. They wanted to shelve it. Disney, a place built for children to be free and safe, and a place where they can have the most fun a child could ever have, turned its back on a film aimed at protecting the most vulnerable of children in the entire world. So The Sound of Freedom deserves all this attention because it exposed Hollywood. It let us see Hollywood for what it truly is, a cesspool of immorality, hate, and hypocrisy. And if you've not seen this film, and I truly mean this as someone who's lived in Central and South America and seen firsthand the devastation left behind as families cope with the constant disappearances of children, you should see this film. It's a hard watch. It's a hard truth. And for me, it may be one of the most important films ever made. And after you see it, and after you remember how Hollywood and the access media tried to kill it, you will understand then why Hollywood is dying and why we may need to let it die. And that may be the most important lesson we can all take away from this past year in film that was 2023. I thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for future content. As always, I am still your reluctant gringo, and from south of the border, salud and la huevo.